Hi, I'm Sonia, and I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, renal cell carcinoma, clear cell. I was diagnosed, or at least they found a tumor that looked suspicious in December of 2021. And in January of 2022, it was confirmed through my actual cancer facility, which was Duke Cancer Center or Cancer Institute, that it indeed looked like I had cancer. About a good year before my cancer was diagnosed, I think is when it first started, but it was very mild. And most of the things were what you would assume are other issues, right? So I would just shrug it off most of the time. But I was basically at a doctor for a good year or two, just like getting different things, like constantly blood work, adding one thing to another thing, medications for my blood pressure, whatever. It was like everything was always off. And I just knew something was not right. But I will say I was also 100 pounds heavier at the time, which I do think makes a difference because obesity can contribute to cancer, especially kidney cancer too. So I do think some of all the issues I was having was associated with my weight. So I don't really want to say that those were the things that led me to my kidney cancer diagnosis. I think what ultimately did it for me, which I tell everyone when they ask me, is fatigue. That was, kidney cancer is notoriously also one that doesn't have a ton of symptoms until you have a late stage of it. And I had stage 1. And so for me, it was the fatigue. I had a ridiculous amount of fatigue, like to the point where even if I was sleeping a full night, I would, like, in the middle of the afternoon, like I would work remote, like I'm sitting here, and I would literally just be so tired. Like I could just like put my head down and just go to sleep, like sitting here. And that was not normal for me because my energy, I'm sure you can tell, is usually super high. So that was a big eye opener for me. Like I knew something was off. It took at least 2 months of me literally begging my gastroenterologist for me to get imaging done for it to happen. I can tell you right now, my story with that was, I think a lot of people probably would have quit because one thing with me, and this is why I always preach about advocacy for anything that might be wrong with you. I've always come across as doing better than I actually am at a physician's office because I'm very upbeat. I'm usually high energy. Even when I'm sick, I don't seem like I'm sick. So, it's easy for doctors to say, oh, you're just imagining it. You're a hypochondriac, whatever. And so that was what was going on. At the gastroenterologist, I kept telling him, I was having really bad abdominal pain and I was having flank pain. We were going on vacation in Jamaica in December, and I was so worried that we would be on this vacation and I would have like an attack with my stomach that I called their office and I'm like, I really need help. Didn't get anywhere. So then I physically went into their office at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I looked horrible and I was like, I need help. I need to see the doctor. And they were like, sorry, if you're not doing well, you need to go to the ER. and I had already gone to the ER like twice in the last month or two where they basically told me I have constipation. Good luck. Like, yeah. So so I had my nose full of going to ERs, of going to the doctor. I was so frustrated when they would not see me that morning that ultimately I called like the emergency line for their office. They had like an emergency line. And I left this voicemail where I was in tears. And I was like, I am so frustrated. I know something is wrong. I need help. I am begging you, order a CT for me. Finally, while I was on vacation in Jamaica, I got the message he had scheduled a CT. So the week after we got back, I got my CT. Sure enough, a couple of days later, found out I had a tumor on my left kidney. Now, granted, I would tell anybody else, do not go through all that. Just go find you a different doctor. I think for me, because I had been with them so long and I just had like good faith in them, I was like, okay, I'm going to get what I need. I don't want to have to do all this back over. It's going to take longer. So I was just trying to make it work with them. It was really surreal because I got the CT and then, thanks to my chart and all of that, I got my CT report back before a doctor could actually explain it to me. But me being who I am, I dig all in. And of course, I go right to the impression area to see what it says. And then on it, it basically said suspected renal cell carcinoma. And I just remember I was at home. My mom and her hubby were in the other room. And I got my report and I'm looking at the computer and then I read carcinoma and I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't carcinoma mean cancer? Like, that's where my head went. So of course I go to my best friend Google. And then I'm like, oh my God, it does mean cancer. And I went in their room and I was like, hey, y'all, I think I might actually have a cancerous tumor on my kidney, And they're just like, what? Kind of stinks to navigate it on your own, but I think it gave me time to process it and also make me more informed going to the doctor when that information was ultimately shared, right? Because I will also say this, I never waited after I got that imaging result. Like, I didn't wait on the gastro. I didn't go back to the gastro. I didn't do anything. I literally called Duke and I said, I got an image. I'm concerned. It says it might be cancer. Can you guys see me? And they were like, yes. And then they got me in, and then they did all their own imaging and blood tests there. And then I got the news from the urologist oncologist, right? So I just went right past going back to the gastro, because I don't think they called me for like 2 months, like maybe a month, like a month, maybe a month. I don't know how long it was, but they didn't call me right away. I'll tell you that. I had a couple of options with it being stage 1. We could go the route of just watching it, and just waiting, right? And things like that. Because sometimes they tend to want to do things that are a little more conservative, especially if you're an older patient. I should mention that I was about 25 years younger than the average age of a kidney cancer patient. So like, even going to the visits, like I'm like one of the younger people in the office, because typically the average age is in your 60s, like mid 60s for that. And I was 42, so I was super young. I've also met several other people in their 30s and 40s that have had kidney cancer because of me sharing my story. They shared theirs. And so I went there and she's like, because you are younger, because you do have a lot ahead of you, I do feel like we could be more aggressive here, and we could go in. And she said, I feel pretty confident we could do it with a partial nephrectomy, robotic assisted, so it'd be minimally invasive. But look into it, see what you think. And ultimately, we landed on that I would have a partial nephrectomy done, robotic assisted there. Because I wanted like 2 months to prepare, because this came out of nowhere and I had like some big deliverables due at work. And because she assured me, with it being stage 1 and with it being the size that it was, because it was under 4 centimeters, which is considered smaller for tumors, right? She felt totally okay waiting to do it for like 2 months. So we scheduled it for Good Friday. So it ended up being April 15th. Like, talk about a sign, right? So I took 2 months to do all the things, because I knew I would be out of work for like 2-3 months. It started already from the morning when I got there on April 15th. I was thinking, this is a sign from above. It is Good Friday. Everything is going to go fabulous. Like, this is going to be amazing. Like, that's where my head was at the time. And I got there, and one of the first issues that was going on, and again, mind you, I was 100 pounds heavier at the time, and I've never had great veins. And when you're heavier, it's even worse because your skin is a lot thicker. So they were having a really hard time finding my veins. I think they attempted to stick me like 7-8 times that morning. And they brought the machines in twice. They brought the special team in a couple of times. And then there was even a physician that, I always get scared when someone comes in overconfident and they're like, I got this, no problem. They came in and they stuck me in my nerve in my arm, and cramped up my whole arm. I still have numbness in my fingers because of that sometimes, but it was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. So that right there was hard already that morning. But then they got the IV in finally. And then I was getting ready to go to surgery, and then I went in. My surgery was supposed to be 4 to 5 hours, and I was expecting to come out with like 4 incisions, small ones, maybe 5, depending on if she needed it, to be able to just take that piece of the tumor off. She did tell me that where the tumor was sitting was like deep, like it was way behind stuff, and that she knew it was going to take a little bit of time, which is why she didn't think it would be on the short end, because these surgeries can last like 3 to 5 hours, 2.5, 3 to 5 hours. And she knew mine would be towards the 5-hour part because of where it was sitting. So she had already told us that. And so they took me back for my surgery. And then I wake up, which felt like 5 minutes later. And when I wake up, I'm like giddy because when I come out of like anesthesia, I'm usually like super like upbeat, happy, and I'm just like, hey, I'm back, I'm fine, I'm alive, I'm happy. My mom is standing beside my bed, just bawling. And she's like, oh my God, you're not going to be okay. Sonia, and I'm just like, what? Like, I'm here. I have no idea what has happened. My brother was here too. So he was here for all of this. And what I find out is that my 5 hour surgery was an 8 hour surgery and like really 8 plus. And the 4 incisions had turned into 7 plus an ileostomy. So I woke up with a new friend, a bag, and a hole with my basically bowels sticking out of my stomach, and like my mom's like, you're not gonna, they had to put a bag and da 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 da, and oh my God, because you got to think they've been on pins and needles this entire surgery because not even 2 hours into my surgery, a trauma surgeon had to get called because what happened was one of the arms of the Da Vinci pierced my bowels and I ended up having a thermal burn, which then caused him to have to come because there was a chance there was going to become like a much bigger complication. I could have died on the table. So they had to come in and like repair that before they could even go to actually get the tumor. So this all happened before the tumor was even removed. And so then to help my bowels rest and recover, so that I wouldn't have to deal with like going to the restroom the way, most people do or any of that, just to give them rest, just being still. They put an ileostomy in. And my question immediately, once I was, okay enough to wrap my head around it, which didn't take me long. I was like, I'm okay, Mom, I'm alive. It's good. Cause again, I'm resilient. I was like, all I want to know is this permanent? that was the only thing I wanted to know. And as soon as they told me that the plan was for it not to be permanent and there was a way out, I was like, got it. Just tell me what I need to do. We're going to make this work. She said that they were able to get all of it with clean margins as far as she could tell, but they had to wait for like final confirmation after pathology and all of that stuff, which of course confirmed that it indeed was renal cell carcinoma. So I was so glad that we had decided together to go the more aggressive route of actually doing surgery because I just wanted it out. You know what I mean? And, they basically, I would say the one thing that hovers that doesn't ever really go away is the fact that because I was young getting kidney cancer, it makes me much more likely to get a second cancer before 50. And it may not even be renal cell carcinoma. It could be a different form of kidney cancer, but it could also just be a different form of cancer, period. But, a lot of times people get another form of kidney cancer, right? And it's like, shoot, is it going to go to my same kidney that's already partially removed? Is it going to go to my other kidney and then I have to get something done there? So it's like that definitely does hover because I know that there's a high chance that before I'm 50, I will get another cancer. So of course I try to stay on top of that. I watch my body. I have a really great primary physician. He's amazing. He never hesitates to test me for anything. So he's always all over checking stuff for me. Which I really appreciate. But that to me now, I just try to like, I would say for my mom's cancer and my cancer, and this is something we didn't really mention earlier, it's like we try to just live for each day, right? Because like if you allow yourself to get caught up in the what if and the ugly what ifs that could happen and that might happen, being realistic, like it can totally like numb you and like paralyze you to the point where you find no joy like in your day to day. We learned very quickly to live every day like it's your last. And that's I tell people all the time, the only thing you can control right now is the moment you're in right now. So like try really hard not to put too much focus into what hasn't happened yet, so I try not to get too caught up in that I could get cancer again. I mean, I could also get hit by a car running across the street. I mean, like I try to keep things in perspective. I do feel like had I already lost the weight then, the recovery would have been even easier, right? Like that's one piece. The ileostomy also complicated my recovery because and here's another piece. I have really sensitive skin too. So on top of that, I have an allergy to like latex, a lot of times adhesives. And when you wear an ileostomy, you have to have like this thing sticking to you, which was then making my skin break out. So on top of having the issue of like navigating an ileostomy, I also had, this adhesive like allergy happening with the tape and things that are on there. My recovery from my kidney tumor removal was actually relatively easy because my incisions weren't big. I just had to go easy, not lift a lot of weights, be conscious of all that. I wore like an abdominal belt that really helped. But the ileostomy made that more tricky because I couldn't really wear it the way I wanted to. And the ileostomy took a lot longer. I wore it about 2 months before I was able to get it reversed. So I ended up at the end of May. So it wasn't even quite 2 months. It was like a month and a half later. I recovered faster than they were expecting because I was pushing for it. And they were able to remove it on May 24th, like to reverse it. But I will also say the months after that, because after you get an ileostomy reversed can be really tricky because your body's learning how to like go to the bathroom like before. And like, when you have to go, you have to go, which can make it really uncomfortable if you're trying to just live and go anywhere, because I was literally in the bathroom like 10 times a day. And like, if I had to go, we had to find a bathroom like right away. So it was a whole thing. I had gastric bypass in September of 2023. And so this was, uh, close to a year post everything with my kidney cancer. And I did that because I had had hormonal issues and I lost over 100 pounds because of that. I should also point out one other complication I had, which I think is important to note, is that I did also have a partial blockage a few months after the ileostomy, which put me back in the hospital. And it did clear up on its own. But that is a very real, like post-surgical complication, even from constipation. So like that's something I think for people to be aware of if you're going to have surgeries, especially if you're dealing with something like cancer, stay on top of preventing your, constipation and things, because that can cause some really major issues. But my partial blockage came from, the area where the ileostomy was, that they basically took a piece off and then reconnected it. It's narrower. And so I made the mistake of eating too many dense things, and it kind of caused a partial blockage. I had a very hard time as I was going through it, but especially afterwards, even referring to myself as a cancer survivor. Like I had a hard time saying survivor. And the reason why is because I felt like my cancer wasn't bad enough. I mean, as bad as this sounds, but I felt like, my urology oncologist said we might have to do radiation. We might have to do chemotherapy, but we won't know until after surgery and how much we're able to remove. So there was always a possibility, but I got lucky. I didn't have to have that at this stage, right? And so for me, I almost felt like I didn't have enough warrior stripes. I mean, forget the fact that I had all these complications and the ileostomy. I was just completely negating that part, right? Like not even paying any attention to that. But like, I just felt like when it came to the things you're supposed to go through with cancer, like, not having the hair from chemotherapy, like I got lucky. I didn't need any of that. And my hair was a lot longer at that time. I actually didn't start losing hair till my gastric bypass, which is when I ended up cutting my hair, and I love it. I'm not going back. But I just was like, I haven't fought enough. How dare I call myself a survivor? And it took me a while to finally wrap my head around. Cancer comes in different shapes and forms, and it still does not in any way change the anxiety associated with it, the constant cloud that's hovering over my head of like, oh man, is it back? Or oh man, is it coming? Or oh man, am I going to have a new one? So I very much am a survivor in the sense that I still have to process every day that there was this foreign invader in my body, coming for me. And not only in my body, now my mom's body, and so that would be the first thing, is like really accepting and understanding and proudly being able to say, I am a kidney survivor, and using that, like a kidney cancer survivor, and using that to be able to also motivate and inspire and educate others, because I do try to advocate for that. And that went on for about a year. And then that's when my mom's cancer popped up. And so obviously I had to switch modes from survivor to caregiver, or survivor and caregiver, because you can be both at the same time. I have found there are a lot of people that are navigating that, because I am connected to a lot of people that have had cancer or that are currently fighting cancer in their family, because I share more and more of our story. And I will say it's been hard in the sense of like I said earlier, why couldn't I fight the stage 4 cancer? And then to my mom's argument, my mom's like, you have a lot more life in front of you. You definitely shouldn't get stage 4. It's my fight to fight. But I'm like, no, it's my fight to fight, because I'm the younger one and I could have done it more. I don't want my dear mom to have this cancer, So I would say that's the hardest part of like, I wish, and this is for any caregiver, whether you're a cancer survivor or not doing this, you want to take it away. Like you want to take it on for them. The way I always tell people, I say, I feel like my fight was practice for her fight. Like, I really do. Like, I feel like we were just warming up. We didn't know at the time, but it kind of goes to that saying, like, everything in life happens for a reason. So maybe the purpose in that was to build us up to be strong enough to navigate this 4B ovarian cancer we're now fighting. I had a completely clear, excellent result with all of the testing that they did today. So no sign of any kind of new tumor. My kidney, at least the partial kidney that's still there, is healing as expected and is just fine and functioning the way that it should be, and no cause for concern. And it doesn't seem like there's any type of cancer spread or new cancer anywhere else in my body. So it is just amazing news for us to leave with. So we're super excited about that. Right, Mom?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So today's a good day. Your girl is free and clear, at least right now today, of kidney cancer, or just cancer, period. Let's hope that stays. I think with kidney cancer, it's almost the same as with ovarian cancer in the sense of like, a lot of times you will not know that you have a kidney tumor in your body until it is too late, unfortunately, because it is also a silent cancer. The later the cancer is discovered, just like with a lot of others, the more difficult it is to treat. Kidney cancer in particular is especially aggressive in later stages. So I would always say, like, if you're feeling any kind of things, particularly if you're feeling things like fatigue or flank pain or having discomfort when you're using the restroom, like urinating, or blood in your urine. I think they call it the triad. Like, if you have blood in your urine, you have flank pain, and you have fatigue, then, those are things where there might be something going on. It could be something as, simple as like a UTI or kidney stones or something else, but it could also be a tumor. I feel like when you lose hope, your fight's over. Like, I feel like a large part of being able to navigate cancer and really any difficulties in life sits in the hope, right? Like the belief that you can fight it, the belief that there's still a chance, the fight, like that's your fight. It's like the foundation of your fight. You're fighting because you have a hope, right? Now, granted, with cancer, you might reach a stage where reality is there isn't anything else that can be done. But as long as you still have some kind of prognosis where there is a fighting chance, like, you have to hold on to hope. If you're going to fight cancer, you need to dig in. You need to do your research. You need to find out who are the best people in the field, who have access to things before others. Like, one of the reasons we picked MD Anderson was because they have access to trials, to drugs, and all of these different things within the cancer world before other hospitals do, like well before other hospitals do. And that makes a difference, because especially when you're fighting a rare form of cancer or an aggressive form of cancer, you want people that are at the very forefront of that research. So with that, I just say, I implore you, do your research, find the place that you feel good at, that you feel comfortable at. And that's another thing too, because when we first went to MD Anderson, we were traveling from North Carolina, which means we fly often back and forth. We've been lucky that we found amazing places like the Ballard House, which, of course, I'll give you information on a lot of those things that have helped us with accommodation so that it didn't break our back in going there. But the thing is we were going to originally do our chemotherapy here in North Carolina. But what happened was my mom did her first chemo at MD Anderson, and the level of care she was given, the level of compassion she was given, how comfortable she was there, I was like, and she was like, we can't go anywhere else. And that was that. And so we were like, we're going to make it work. I don't care what we have to do. If we have to sell our left foot, we are going to make this work. You know what I mean? Like that I think a lot of people get very caught up in, oh my gosh, I'm going to get behind on my bills. I've had to sideline a lot of my bills because the credit cards, some of the places I had, even when I called them to explain my mom was fighting stage 4 cancer, they're like, so? There weren't even programs to help. And I was trying to be proactive. This was before I got behind. I said, hey, I'm going to get behind. I can't keep up with this right now. We have to pay for my mom to go get care. We're going to be flying back and forth. I can't do it. I lost my job. I disclosed all of that. And they basically were like, sorry for you, but when can you pay? Learning what you can control, what you can't control, what you can process and deal with and do, and what you can't. And putting your all into the things that you can. And what I can do is be an amazing caregiver for my mother, make sure I'm taking care of myself. I have my second annual post scans in December, which are coming up, crossing my fingers. I'll be kidney cancer free because I was last year. But that's all I can do. I can just focus on what I can focus on, and the rest, to hell with it. Maybe somebody will take me to court one day, but I'm like, take me, because what's going to happen when we go? I'm going to explain what's going on. It's the truth. All I can do is all I can do. Yeah, you know what I mean? That's what it is. So take that if someone's looking for advice. You do what you can do, and you just let the rest go.